Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has signed a new bill causing backlash across the country. Thousands of people have taken to the streets this week protesting a law that critics say weakens anti-corruption agencies in Ukraine. Now Zelenskyy says he'll adopt a new version of the bill to preserve independence for those agencies. Foreign correspondent Tom Soufi Burridge is following that story for us from London. Tom, why do you think Zelensky's backtracking on this bill? Is this just protests or is there more to this?
Yeah, no, I think Zelenskyy will call this a compromise. I think some people will basically call it a climb down. And I think, undoubtedly, popular power, people are protesting on the streets over the last couple of nights right across the country. Thousands of people in the capital, Kiev. I think that's played a role. But I think undoubtedly Western warnings about the implications of going forward with this type of legislation will have really, I think, twisted Zelensky's arm. And the reason for that is, Diane, these institutions that we're talking about, they're anti-corruption institutions for basically investigating major corruption cases and prosecuting major corruption cases. These institutions weren't just set up 10 years ago because Ukraine thought it was a good idea. They were set up as strings attached to Western support, US support and European Union support. In the last 24 hours, we've had a very strongly worded statement from Republican Senator Lindsey Graham and a Democratic senator. But Lindsey Graham has the ear of President Trump, and he's a massive, massive backer of Ukraine. But in his statement, he was effectively saying that this type of legislation, undermining the independence of these anti-corruption institutions, put at risk future US investment deals. And the EU has huge leverage over Ukraine. Finance from the EU is absolutely vital. They inevitably had huge leverage on pulling Zelenskyy back on this very, very controversial move.
Zelensky's been celebrated in Ukraine for his leadership during the war. So what does this pushback mean for his political future?
I think it damages him domestically. I mean, again, you've got to realize, though, in Ukraine, because of the war, there is martial law. That's why there haven't been elections. Now, there doesn't look like any change over that in the near term. So, it'll be hard to read exactly what kind of damage this has done. But I think, Zelenskyy, I think, seen internationally, was a real kind of reformist. I mean, I think in the early stages of the war, it's true that us, the international media and international governments, including the US government, put him on a bit of a pedestal. He was really kind of celebrated as the icon of Ukraine's fight. I think for many Ukrainians, this shows that he is just one politician and that Ukraine is a vast country. And what Ukraine is fighting for, the fundamentals of democracy, sovereignty, transparency, getting rid of Russian-style corruption, that is much bigger than one man.
Tom Soufi Burridge, thank you.